we just got some new data for the entire month of May, which should give us some insights on how effective the ban waves were. In April, when everyone was complaining about all the cheaters, right at the end, Valve came with a few different ban waves, where right at the start of May is where a bunch of different cheaters and exploits got banned. There was also a ban wave to bots, but let's check out how effective these bans were, as the last time we saw these numbers were for April. Now let's begin with these stats from last month, which looks at each rank's crosshair placement to their time to damage. You notice that throughout April, pretty much any rank above 25k all had a time to damage of less than 100. Pretty much was a requirement to be at this rank. While you look at something like May, you notice all these ranks, well, now they're all above around 200, which so far seems like there were some improvements when you compare May to April. Now, another stat which was interesting for last month was when you compare something like the smokes thrown per game to any other stat, like let's say the time to damage, you'll notice any rank above 25k essentially never threw any utility. It was the same thing for not only smokes, but also let's say flashes. All these ranks were sitting right at the bottom. But now when you go ahead and compare these stats to May, you notice they're all now starting to throw some utility. It looks like 29k is still stuck at 0. Now there's also some visible improvements when you take a look at, for example, what are players' time to damage in Premiere. As you notice in April, it was pretty crazy. I mean, it went from 0.6% to 0.2 to 0.2, and then for 0 to 100 it was 0.6. But when we go ahead and compare this exact same thing to May, you notice it has sort of evened out a little bit now, and now there's only 0.1% of players that have this time to damage, rather than in April, which was 0.6. Now, back in April, we were also looking at what weapons were people using to get kills, which gets interesting when you start to break it down into different ratings. As for example, in April, when you look at 15 to 20k, you notice things like the scout only had 2.1% of the kills, but when you go ahead and then go from let's say 20 to 25k, the scout jumped all the way up and was racking up over 24% of the kills in April. You also see the auto sniper start to rise up, and then when we look at April above 25k, you notice the scout is sitting at over 60% of the kills. The SCAR 20 is the third most used gun in this rank. Now when we go ahead and compare this to May, you notice at around 15 to 20k, things seem somewhat the same as what they were back in April. Not many big changes. But then when you go ahead and look at 20 to 25k, you notice the scout is no longer the most used weapon. It's now the fifth most used weapon in this rank at 5.8%, which before was sitting at 24.3%. So that's a huge difference compared to April to May. Obviously, there will still be some regular players who will want to be using the scout. So having it jump from the most used weapon in April at 20 to 25k in Premiere to where in May it was only 5.8% of the kills, it seems like a nice improvement. But then when we look at, let's say, everything above 25k, the scout is still the most used weapon at around 43%. You look at the auto snipers, they're sitting around 6%, which is still a little bit of an improvement from, let's say, in April, where the scout had 60% of the kills and the auto snipers had 7 and 5%. Maybe one of the most popular cheats being down for over a week played a part into it, but we'll have to see what happens going forward and if these numbers continue to normalize, or if matchmaking just continues to be infested by cheaters. Now, these are also the most played maps in Premiere. In May, this was before the vertigo change. Once we got the vertigo change, not much changed, but this stat definitely looks a lot different now when you compare it to, let's say, April before the map pool change, which you'll notice we had Inferno as the second played map. We also still had Overpass still in this pool, so you can see how things changed just a few weeks later. Now, we also talked about how on May 29th, Valve came out with big changes, which stopped all bots from case farming, boosting, but within just a few days, some of the biggest ones have found out the problem and a solution. So unless if we see Valve take action once again very fast, expect them to all sort of just be up and running like nothing happened very soon. The recent update was just some general fixes, so we'll have to see what else Valve has planned. While we wait for the next big Counter-Strike update, check out this video which goes over mods that you can play.